Hello, and thank you for being here. My name is Marc Nessinger, and you can find all these recordings and resources at mylifetransitionsguide.com. If you've been listening to this series, you know this isn't about fixing your life. It's about understanding where you are and giving yourself permission to be there. And if this is your first episode, I want to say something important right away. You know, you didn't find this by accident. There's a good chance something in your life has shifted quietly or maybe violently, and you're trying to understand what stage of your life you're actually in right now. And that's what this recording is about. I've been explaining it for years and years that, you know, life is a pyramid that most people don't realize they're standing in. So I want you to picture a pyramid. Not a motivational pyramid, not a productivity pyramid, but a human pyramid, the way life actually unfolds when it breaks. You know, at the bottom of that pyramid is survival. Above it is stability, and at the top of the pyramid is significance. And here's the key truth that most people miss. You didn't choose survival, but it's a place that everyone's going to visit eventually. And when people judge themselves for being in survival mode, it's usually because they don't realize, you know, what level of the pyramid they're standing in right now. And survival is at the base of that pyramid. It's not dramatic. It's not heroic. It's exhausting. Survival feels like I am just getting through the day. You're holding your breath. You're reacting instead of deciding anything. You feel foggy, numb, or absolutely overwhelmed. You know, after my wife died, I remembered sitting by a bonfire about a week later, and it felt absolutely calm, almost still, and absolutely terrifying. What I didn't realize at the time that I was standing in the eye of the hurricane. The front side had already passed, but the backside was coming. And when it hit, that's when I entered survival mode. Every day wasn't about living. It was just about breathing, about trying to put one foot in front of the other, about not collapsing. And if you think you're there right now, well, let me say this clearly to you. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You know, I've used this analogy before, and it's in many of my writings you can find on my website, because it's the only way I know how to really explain survival mode honestly. Survival's like being in the water, and you're paddling, while the waves just keep breaking over you. You're not swimming towards a destination. You're not making progress. You're just trying not to drown each and every single day. Every day the waves hit. Every day you swallow a little bit more water. And every day you get a little bit more tired. That's survival. And in survival mode, people often ask themselves the wrong question. You know, what should I do next? How do I fix this? When am I going to feel normal again? Because survival isn't about fixing. Survival's just trying to stay afloat. And stability is really the middle of the pyramid. It begins the moment something small but critical changes, you catch your breath. Not because the storm is gone, but because someone either throws you a life ring or you yourself realize, hey, I'm in survival mode, and you raise your hand and you ask somebody to throw you a life ring. You know, maybe it's you finally accept some help from somebody, a friend, a neighbor, a church, a professional. Maybe it's words that finally land with you, or you see that this is a framework that makes sense, or you simply realize, you know, I don't have to do this alone. Stability is when you're still in the water, but you can breathe. You can look around. You can see the waves without panicking. You're no longer swallowing water with every single hit of the waves. And this is where routines start to return, where decisions get smaller, where clarity begins to flicker back on. And stability isn't strength. It's simply being able to breathe. It's air. And why stability is built so slowly. Here's what I want you to hear clearly. Stability is not built through big moves. It's built through small, repeatable steps. One decision you don't rush. One boundary with somebody or something that you hold, or one pillar that you stabilize. This is where episode 2 and episode 3 connect. You don't fix all 4 of your life pillars at once. You just got to support one. And that support becomes the platform that, begins to lift you upward. And significant is at the top of the pyramid, and significant moments, it's not a destination. Significance sits at the top of the pyramid, but it's very often misunderstood. You don't live in significance. You just experience it. Significant moments are the ones that stay with you forever. A child's first steps, asking someone to marry you, saying goodbye for the last time, watching your children grow, a quiet conversation that maybe changes everything. It's not the holidays, it's not the achievements, it's the small, critical moments. And here's something I've learned both personally and professionally. In my day job as a financial advisor, I've had the privilege of sitting people beside themselves in their final days. And I've asked this question more times than I count. Hey, tell me 1 or 2 moments that defined your life. And they never tell me, ever, about the car they drove, the money they made, or the house they lived in. They tell me about the significant moments of love, moments of courage, moments of connection. That's significance. And here's the beauty of the pyramid. You don't climb it all at once, and you can't skip levels. Survival teaches humility. Stability builds strength, and significance gives meaning to your life. And every single one of these stages matters. This framework is shaped by my background in a behavioral finance, in human decision making, and that's the lens I've spent my professional life working through. But these recordings aren't about my day job. They exist to support you right where you are. If at some point you're curious about my professional background, you're welcome to look me up on your own. But hey, this space really is here to stand on its own. And if this framework is helping you, and I hope you realize that maybe for the first time, oh my gosh, I'm in survival mode. And that awareness matters, because the moment you realize you need a life ring, you're already taking the first step out of survival. And maybe this is the recording that you needed to hear today. You don't rebuild your life in one move. You rebuild it in stages. I want to say that again. You don't rebuild your life in one move. You rebuild it in stages. You can find the rest of these recordings and resources at mylifetransitionsguide.com. In the next episode, the final episode, we're going to talk about the compass and how to take your next step without urgency, pressure, or fear. For now, notice where you are. That awareness alone is progress. And don't forget, it's a good life.